Hi, this is Deborah Clutter. Last night I did a live on these bowl cozies and kind of went a little south. So I thought I would make a new video to show you how to make these so that you have the full instructions, because it wasn't very clear on how to make it. So that's what this video is about. And here is the bowl cozies, and I hope you like them. I thought they were easier to do this way, but I like to embroider anything that I can. I will put it on my embroidery machine, especially if it has any quilting on it, because it's just easier for me to do that away. So this a bowl cozy is quilted, and the quilting lines are going in the right direction. So I made sure that they all kind of match up, and then when you finish embroidering it, you just cut along the edge and you'll have the correct pattern. And you can use that to cut your lining fabric if you want, or you could use a Cricut. I have the SVG file in the pattern, so you can download that and cut your fabric on your Cricut. And you know, there's also a template in there if you want to use a template and make a paper template. You can do that. So I am going to show you in this video how to make these, but I want to talk a little bit about why I did this. I mean, it's a bowl cozy. Get a 10-inch square, you mark it, and make these little darts, and you go to town, right? Well, I didn't like the process. I didn't like it. I didn't like marking. I didn't like getting my ruler out and marking those little darts and then cutting them, and then the batting was still stuck in there and it just made it bulky. I didn't like that process. So that's why I did it this way. I mean, this was the one I bought, and I bought it because I was never going to make one of these. And so this one has, I think, a single layer of batting. And then I watched some videos. They were all using 2 layers of batting. Well, that batting I bought, that Pellon batting I bought, was super thick. So the first one I made was 2 layers, and this thing, I could sleep on this thing. It's like a pillow. It's super thick, and it was it was so bulky to try to sew over here. My sister says she wants this one because she feels like it'll keep her hands from getting hot, but the other ones work just as fine. But yeah, I didn't like this little fluffy one. So that is why I decided to use my, I thought, well, I'll quilt it a little bit and use 1 layer of batting. So this was the next one I made, and I quilted this on my sewing machine. Well, I didn't like that. I didn't want to do that. It took too much time, and it just wasn't fun. And I didn't really like these. I don't like these pointy corners. I know when I tried to use the original one that I had bought, this one, it kind of flopped over into my soup or whatever it was, and it got all dirty. So I didn't really like these little corners. So I drafted a pattern, and I quilted it on my, I made an embroidery pattern, and I quilted it on my embroidery machine. And this was the second one I did. And all the lines are going in the same direction, and I didn't like the quilting. So that's where I got to the last one with the quilting that goes around kind of in a square, and it goes around the bottom of it. And then this one didn't quite have the corners rounded exactly like they're supposed to. I had to take it into AutoCAD. I always have to make an image in AutoCAD because I can get precise corners, and then I can put the image out and take it into my embroidery software, and then I can digitize over it. So these are the ones that are in the embroidery file. You have to have a 9.5 inch hoop. I'm sorry, I know everybody doesn't. But if you want an 8.5, send me an email and I will make you an 8.5. I don't think anything smaller than that's really gonna look good or work too good. It'd be like this little, be like a cup cozy. But I mean, if you want a cup cozy, we could do that too. So anyway, I hope you like this, and why don't you give it a try if you have an embroidery machine. See if you like it. I mean, because I thought it was easier, and it was definitely a lot more fun than measuring and putting all those little stupid darts in. So give it a try and let me know. Thanks. For this project, you're going to need a 10-inch or a 10.5-inch piece of cotton batting. I'm only using one layer, and this is Pellon's all-natural cotton batting, and it's really thick. So I tried 2 layers, and it wasn't great. So I have a 10.5-inch square. You can use a 10-inch square. I just cut it out of yardage, so I made it a little bit bigger. And this is the one I messed up on in my live, if you watched that. So we're going to reuse it. And then I have one piece of lining, and this one was cut on my Cricut. There is an SVG file in the zip file that you can use if you have a Cricut or a Silhouette. You can cut these out. And I used the cotton setting on the Cricut with a rotary blade. It has a little tiny rotary blade, and you have to make sure I use a fabric mat, and you have to make sure it's really sticking to it to get it to cut correctly. If you just barely put it on there, it doesn't want to cut all the way through, so you have to really press it down. So I'm using a 9.5-inch hoop, and this one I have hooped with some really thin muslin fabric. And I used a magnetic hoop in all of the other ones I made, and that's what messed up last night. It slipped in the magnetic hoop because it doesn't like this real thin muslin I have. And I used a little bit thicker muslin on most of them that I did, so I'm hooping it in a regular hoop and just make sure it's nice and taut. It has to be 9.5 inches or bigger to be able to do this. If you need a 8.5 inch, if you want to try an 8.5 inch, send me an email and let me know, and I can make a file for you that's for an 8.5 inch hoop. I think if we get any smaller, then it's not really going to work. So if you want to just cut these out without using an embroidery machine, I did put a PDF in there, and it looks like this, and just put it on some freezer paper. Trace around it, cut it out, and then you can just iron this on your fabric and cut it out. I would iron it on a stack of fabric and cut them all out at the same time. This saves you from measuring, drawing a line, and then, doing all that. If you don't mind doing that, just do it that way. Do whatever is easiest for you. The second template is just for the batting. I like my batting not to go all the way to the edge. So if you want to use this template, you can make a template for your batting so that you can place it on your fabric after you're done and make sure it's, outside of the seam line. This just makes it easier to sew. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. It's just the way I prefer it, so it doesn't mean you have to prefer it that way. But I like doing it this way. I liked cutting it on the Cricut. I didn't have to do any of that measuring. I was getting tired of the measuring. So if you don't mind that, then go ahead and do it that way. But this is easier. I think I would make an AccuQuilt cutter out of this and just have them all cut that way. So I'm going to take my project over to the sewing machine and get started. We're going to get started on our little bow cozy, and I have cotton thread in the bobbin and cotton thread up top, and it's just a gray cotton, and I think it's some kind of off-brand. I don't know for sure what brand it is. And I did take my embroidery machine, and it's stitching at 800 stitches per minute instead of the 1,050 that it normally stitches. So I did take the speed down a little bit just so it wouldn't break the cotton thread. So we're going to get started. All right, it is finished with the placement line, and I know you can't really see it. Let me see if I can get some light over here. Oh, so that is where you're going to set your batting. So just place your batting, and don't use batting spray. You can tape it if you want. I'm just going to kind of hold it down. You don't want to just turn on your machine and walk away, because it'll get all bunched up. So you do need to kind of hold it in there. If that makes you nervous, then you probably should tape it down. Normally I don't like holding it. I'll use basting spray, but I don't know what the basting spray will do in the microwave, so I'm not going to use it in there. And I did use every inch of this hoop that I could. So the pattern measures 9.38. So maybe 9 3/8 of an inch. All right. So now we're going to take this off, and we're going to trim the batting right next to the line. All right, I trimmed my batting close to the stitching line, and I actually cut the stitching line a little bit, but I want to show you how thick this batting is. And it is thicker than normal cotton batting that I've used. And if anybody knows where to get a good roll of this Pellon all natural cotton batting, let me know. So after you finish that, you're going to place your fabric over the top. And again, we're going to hold this in place while it stitches down. And go ahead and start that. Still have some threads from where I messed up yesterday. I didn't want to throw the fabric away, so I just unstitched it. So I was having a little technical difficulties there, and that seems to be par for the course lately. I don't know what is going on. So I finished tacking this down, and then now we're just going to start the quilting. And so I did make this quilting so that when you fold the bowl up, all the lines are going to be going in the same direction. Because the first one I had done, I just did straight lines all the way across, and it didn't look good. So this one is doing the lines based on the angle it's going to be when it goes up. So I'm going to go ahead and let that finish, and we'll get back when it's done. Okay, the quilting is all done, so we're just going to take it out, and this is kind of what it looks like, and I think it looks really good, and you can see what I'm talking about. The quilting is going in this direction here, this direction here, here, and then like that. So kind of like in a square, so when you fold it up, it'll all match. So I'll go ahead and pop it out of the hoop, and I'll show you how to cut it. All right, so this is out of the hoop, and I think the first thing I do is I just cut away all this extra muslin on the back, because it really gets in the way when you're trying to trim this thing. So just, you know, kind of get rid of it. I'm not going to say just like that. I noticed in all my videos, I say that a lot. A lot of little phrases I've caught myself saying. All right. So there it is. And we want to cut this from the back, because if you try to cut it from the front, you're going to cut it next to this line right here, and that's not the line that you want. You want to cut it next to this line. So let's say you have your lining fabric. You could put your lining fabric on here, you know, pin it together somehow, and then you could cut the lining and this at the same time, and then you won't even need the template, or you won't even need to cut this, you know, with some other method. You just put your lining back there and line it up and make sure, you know, it's over all the lines that you have on this, and then you can use this as a template to cut it. So normally what I do is I go around and cut all the V's first, and you want to cut on that last line, and then you want to cut it into the V so it looks like that, and then just go around and cut those all. It really doesn't take that long. I was cutting these as I was you know, embroidering another one, so it was kind of streamlined. This is the last one I'm going to make, so hopefully for a very long time. I can't believe it messed up last night. I was like so mortified. So embarrassed. Yeah, I'm not a professional, so. All right. And then just go around and trim the rest of it on the outside line. Like I said, if you had put your lining fabric on there, you would want to make sure you're cutting all the way through all of it. And then you would have two exactly the same. You could probably even, I was going to say you could use some basting spray and put it on there temporarily, but I don't know. It's up to you. So I'm going to go ahead and finish cutting this, and then we'll take it to the sewing machine, and I'll show you how to finish sewing it together. All right, let's get started. And so I have my front piece and my back piece, and I'm just going to use gray thread again because that's what I've been using on everything. And then you're just going to fold the corners, and my machine is going to make some noise. You want to back stitch the beginning and the end, and then just stitch all those together. And it's really simple and fast. You can do them. You don't have to do any measuring. I just sit there and sew it really fast. So I'm going to go ahead and sew all these together, and then I'm going to do the same thing to this. And when you sew these together, you just want to sew on the outside of that line right there, so this line doesn't show when you open it back up. So just make sure your lines are kind of matched up, and then sew on the outside of that line. So this is what this looks like when it's sewn. You can see I'm not exactly, my dog just came in. It's not exactly perfect, but it'll be fine. So you can see when the how the lines match up for the quilting on this side, and I think that looks really nice. So my dog just went for a walk and she smells really bad. Take your scissors, you need a pair of really sharp scissors, and kind of clip these points right here on the lining side, and it'll make it easier to iron it. And I'm going to iron it open just because I don't like sewing over all this bulk. You can do it any way you want. So I have my little iron set up, and I have my camera right on my ironing mat, so it's going to be a little bit difficult to set this up. But just iron all your seams open, And then I'm going to iron these open also, and then we'll start putting it together. So I have all the seams ironed opened. I think I missed this one. Hang on. Oh, there we go. All right, everything's ironed open. So the quilted side is going to be the bottom, and this is going to be the lining. So I'm just going to put the lining on the bottom, right sides together. Get some clips and just clip it in place, and it should match up. I mean, this was they're all pretty. You can see I just have it setting in there, and it just matches up really well. And then maybe clip the insides right there. It just kind of wants to sit there anyway, so I may not have to clip it. I'm going to start on this side, so I'm just going to leave that. And then I'm going to start right here at one of these seams and start sewing. And I'm going to sew from this side so that I can see the stitching on the quilted one, because I want to stitch on the other side of that last stitching line so it doesn't show when I turn the bag, or turn the bowl. Not a bag. So you want to make sure you back stitch, and then I mean, you don't even have to worry about a 1/4 inch. You can just follow that line, on the inside of that line. So it makes it pretty easy. When you get to the next seam, you're just going to kind of turn, pick up your presser foot and turn your bag. And I got some stuff poking out here. And then just continue, and then you're going to stop before you get to this seam that you started. You want to stop right about there, and that's after you get through the curve and right when it starts the straight part. You don't want to stop in the curve, because it's almost impossible to get that sewn together right after you turn it. So try to stop right here, and then we'll go ahead and turn it. All right, so this is the opening I left. You can see I stopped right after I got through the curve, and it's going to be a very tiny opening, so there's not much you can do about it. But you want to clip these stitches right in the corner of all this where the little darts are. You need to clip that. So you can either take your seam ripper, or I'm just going to cut it. Just be careful not to cut through the stitching. But you have to ease it, or otherwise it'll do some funky stuff right there. We don't want funky. We want easy. So it just needs to be eased, so that it goes nice and straight. And then just go ahead and turn it through this little tiny opening. If you want to, maybe go past that, you can. It's not. I mean, it's doable. You can still turn it through this little opening. It's just, a little bit more difficult, as you can see. And I have like the world's weakest hands. I used to have really strong hands, and then the arthritis has really took their toll. I'm sure I'm not the only one that knows about that. All right, almost got this. I'm working up a sweat. Whew, there we go. And then just pop out your corners. That was exciting. I'm in a funny mood today. Which is good because I haven't been really in the best of moods lately. Okay. So the rounded quarters do make it a lot nicer to, you know, turn this out. And if you have the same fabric, I don't know why is it doing that? There we go. If you have the same fabric on the top and the bottom, then it's not going to show, or you won't have to roll the seams as much. But I would go ahead and press it before you top stitch it, and just try to get the seams to lay flat, or as flat as possible. And I'm going to get some glue and put it in here real quick, and I'll be right back. Here's my glue-based bottle, and this is just regular Elmer's glue, and I use this for everything. So I'm just going to put a little bit of glue right there, and just turn that, and use my iron, and the iron will heat up the glue and make it kind of dry so it stays. That way the opening is closed, and when we stitch it, you can hand stitch that closed if you want to. I'm not going to, but if you want to, you can. The glue works okay for me. You know, I didn't really look at a lot of the video for when I made the first one. There were so many videos of how to make these with the 10-inch squares, but so I didn't watch how they actually turned it or anything. I mean, it seemed pretty simple to me. All right, so I'm just going to top stitch around the edge real quick and decide which way I want to top stitch, from the bottom or from the top. I think I'll start from the bottom. I'm only doing like an 1/8 of an inch. And the corners make it really easy to top stitch around, which I liked better than doing the square corners. All right, that was pretty simple. It looks much better with the top stitching. I don't know what's going on with my throat this morning. So the last thing you want to do is stitch across in it so that it holds the lining. So I'm going to stitch from this side, and I just want to flip it like this. And then I'm just going to follow that quilting X that's in the middle. There's only a partial one on this side, but you can still see where it's at. And so just pick a side and stitch it together. It makes it easy. You don't have to mark it. It's already got the line there. And if you use the same color thread, then it'll look like it's all part of the quilting. I think it looks better with the quilted X in it than without. But it's up to you. You want to take the extra step. I mean, it really doesn't take that much time to do, so. And then just cut your little threads. And then your bowl is all done. Now, so one of the things you could do with the embroidery pattern is you can add, you know, a name and embroider somebody's name on here. After you do the quilting, you can add the name. And I think that would be really cool. You'll just have to do it in cotton thread. So I think this looks really good. I think it looks nice and professional. All the quilting is going the right way, and it looks nice, especially if you put the X in the middle. It keeps it together, and I think it looks really cool. I hope you guys like this. Thanks.